On this episode of Just Informed Talk, the latest new QAnon posts give us incredible insights into the plan and how it is evolving and unfolding in front of our eyes. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. If you guys haven't done it already, please come here on the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, and make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you're notified when these videos get posted. That helps out the channel big time, and I really appreciate it. Here we are. This is where we're going to start, guys. This is the latest QAnon post, and if you guys want to get caught up, like I always say, come back here to the landing page, watch these last few videos, and definitely leave your thoughts in the comments and share these on your social media. And if you're scratching your head going, what in the world is QAnon? What's this guy talking about? I encourage you to watch this video right here. It'll give you a good idea of what QAnon is, how to do the research, how to get involved, and where to find it all. So that being said, here we are. We're starting right here. This is Q post 2461. This is where we left off. And stick around at the end because we have a couple special messages. I actually just got a message from Praying Medic about something that's happened to his channel, and we'll talk about that and maybe a couple other things. But now we're just going to do Q posts. Okay, so first, this is the Daily Beast article that Q is giving us. This is Q posting. And the Daily Beast article says, QAnon reference by man arrested for threatening to kill Trump. Now, if you guys remember, this guy, Jeffrey Boyd, actually drove from Oklahoma all the way to, I think it was Pennsylvania, to meet a woman who he believed was being held by, I guess, the deep state. And long story short there, it turned out he had driven all the way across the country with a weapon to this place and met with this woman and basically told her this incredible story about how he was being manipulated and basically put under mind control, like an MK Ultra type mind control to commit an act of violence. And that was his story. So the woman who met him actually decided, after meeting with this guy, to call the police, obviously, because she knew that the next day, this was back in August, that President Trump was going to be having a rally there. And she just thought it was a good thing to do, and I commended her when it happened for her ability to have the foresight to know to call the police. So anyway, they called the police, and this guy ended up getting picked up. And you can see here, this is another Will Sommer gem here. Will Sommer is I don't know what to call this guy. He is a writer over at the Daily Beast. The guy's content, his stories, every story he puts out about QAnon is pretty terrible. It's usually just riddled with inaccuracies, and he's definitely of the opinion that Q is basically like a LARP, not real. So here you go. This is what we're covering. This is Q giving us this post, and Q goes on to say, why are we under heavy fire? Why are we so important to the fake news media? Attacks coordinated. The swamp is everywhere. There is a reason some could no longer be trusted. You're witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard, forced exposure, standard deviation broken long ago, pain, P-A-I-N, Q. So a few things to note here. First of all, this Daily Beast article is just one of many that has come out from just in particular, Will Sommer has written several, but others have written many other articles as well. And what Q is saying is, why is it so important to go after and attack Q and to basically create a level of disinformation around Q? Why is that happening? What is the importance there to the fake news media? That's a good question, but I think it's obviously because they know what Q is. Q is President Trump, Q is military intelligence, and others around him in his cabinet who are coordinating to basically pull off the greatest military intelligence operation of all time, whereby they are systematically, as it says, destroying the old guard while simultaneously feeding the public the information that they deserve to know that the mainstream media will not report on. So I think that's really what this is talking about. It says the swamp is everywhere. So I don't know if he's making the insinuation that Will Sommer is a swamp creature. I mean, to be quite honest, having read his work and seen his accuracy in reporting, I completely would not hesitate to say for one second that he may be a part of that swamp apparatus, right? just another swamp creature. Now, and of course, these are like metaphorical terms. I'm not saying this guy's a literal swamp thing. I'm saying that if you understand what we're talking about, what the swamp is, and you understand what we're getting at here, then you'll understand what that statement said. So it's saying there's a reason some could no longer be trusted. And I hesitate to say, but I think this may be the reference to Jeff Sessions. But I don't know, because, I think that Jeff Sessions may have been planned that he was going to step down. So, but he could have been no longer able to be trusted because of a whole myriad of different reasons. Either way, if you guys have a better look at that or interpretation, let me know down in the comments. And then when Q says you're witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard, I mean, obviously, look at what's happening. The old guard, the gatekeepers, the high power players, the deep state, the swamp, the shadow government, whatever you want to call it, is being dismantled before our very eyes. And it's pretty incredible. Forced exposure, I think that's talking about this, all these stories. We're going to force the exposure on it. And then it says standard deviation broken long ago. And then it spells out pain there, and it says Q. I think the standard deviation thing is obviously referencing to me the fact that, this has obviously become something that we can say is another way that Q has basically broken into the mainstream and forced the exposure of what's going on simply by making these people report on what QAnon is. And then furthermore, even when they report trying to debunk Q, that actually, it's like the saying, any press is good press, or any publicity is good publicity. It's just continuing to grow Q every time they address it, and they're forced to address it. And I think what it's saying, like the standard deviation of their work has proven itself to be unreliable. But that's kind of what I'm reading it as. Anyway, it says PIAN, obviously that's just one of Q's little sayings. Now, the next one here, the next post says logical thinking required. A, how can arrest occur prior to removing the corruption from the DOJ and FBI? B, how can arrest occur prior to safely securing a majority in the Supreme Court, Constitution, rule of law? C, what is the role of the Senate? Then it says role of Goodlatte, role of Gowdy, role of Sessions. Goodlatte, Gowdy, and Sessions all resigned. And then it says it again. Goodlatte, Gowdy, and Sessions all resigned. It says, who did Sessions appoint in November of 2017? And then it gives this Fox News article, which talks about the appointment of John Huber. All right. So that's one thing to note, is that John Huber was obviously appointed by Jeff Sessions because Jeff Sessions was recused and they wanted to work on several investigations behind the scenes. Huber has been conducting several investigations behind the scenes into things like the Clinton emails, Uranium One, and other stuff that we want answers to. And he's been doing it under the purview so far of Jeff Sessions. Now, Jeff Sessions has stepped down. What does that mean? Well, it means that Jeff Sessions was there for a reason. The reason being to place somebody like John Huber instead of having a second special counsel. Because somebody like John Huber, who can, as a U.S. attorney, he can impanel a grand jury. He has a team of 470 investigators, I think, with Michael Horowitz. So, who is the Inspector General, who's also conducting investigations. This, to me, is just another insight into what is going on, like the inside baseball of all this, right? So when Q's asking us about why or when or who did he appoint back then, it's saying who is Huber, who reconfirmed Huber, who originally appointed Huber, importance of partisan optics, mandate charged to Huber, resources provided to Huber, who is Horowitz, mandate charged to Horowitz, resources provided to Horowitz, who is Sessions' chief of staff, what were the responsibilities of Whitaker, what is the role of a chief of staff, shadow players are the deadliest stealth. What is the advantage of having a temp acting in a leadership position? And then it gives this article to the BBC, which talks about Anthony Scaramucci and his 10 days, basically 10 wild days at the White House, where he was, I believe he replaced Sean Spencer as the press secretary and just got into it with the press. And it was pretty entertaining, to be quite honest. But Q tells us what's important about Scaramucci and him being fired after 10 days. It gives a quote from that article saying the appointment itself on July 21st triggered a shakeup at the Trump White House. Chief of Staff Reince Priebus and spokesman Sean Spicer both left their positions over his hiring. Mission successful. So, excuse me, it wasn't Sean Spencer that he replaced. He came in as the White House, I think, communications director, right? So, and I'm talking about Scaramucci. So, mission successful. That's interesting. Laser designator locked on targets who are assigned directly to Sessions by POTUS. Mandate charge to Ezra Cohen Watnick, Defense Intelligence Agency. National Security Advisor to Sessions, Counterintelligence and Counterterrorism. Who briefed Nunes on classified intel regarding Hussein's spy campaign versus POTUS. And then it gives this Business Insider article about, of course, Ezra Cohen Watnick, the man who was basically fired by the Trump White House, only to have President Trump order his hiring over at the Justice Department, where he was named the National Security Advisor to Attorney General Jeff Sessions. So that's an interesting note. But anyway, it says, who briefed Goodlatte and Gowdy on classified intel regarding DOJ and FBI? And then it gives these marks here, the little... they call them arrows. Anyway, it says the world is watching, the world is witnessing the true identity of the Democratic Party war, Q. All right, wow. So this is the insight to the plan that I was trying to talk about in the beginning, the intro. This is all giving us insight. All right, so let's kind of break this down piece by piece. First, you have this up here where it talks about how can you arrest when you have corruption inside the FBI and the DOJ, and that's the biggest point that I think he's been making for so long. Is that how can these arrests be go if you have people inside of the organizations that you're trying to task with bringing them down? Now, yeah, of course you could unseal an indictment and have them go arrest them, but if there's still people inside like Rosenstein and others, they can throw as many wrenches as is humanly possible into any investigation, thereby hindering our ability to actually have an outcome that is have the desired outcome, which is to have justice prevail. So then it says, how can the arrest occur prior to safely securing a majority in the Supreme Court? Obviously, we're still, we've just gotten that, basically. But I guess we would maybe need one more to really get a solid one. Anyway, the next one says, what is the role of the Senate? Well, the Senate has an incredibly vast role. And it talks about Goodlatte, Gowdy, and Sessions and how they all resigned. I think what that's talking about is how they've basically stepped down from their respective roles in their committees, but they've laid the groundwork. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the direct implication of all this is, other than to say that it seems like Goodlatte and Gowdy and Sessions all were setting this up. So imagine you have Goodlatte and Gowdy in their House committees pushing this up to the Senate, pushing things up to Chuck Grassley so that he can do his own work, do his own investigation, because the Senate has the ability to do much more than the House. The House can, can issue subpoenas. The House can, have an investigation. But what the House can't do is certain things that the Senate can do, basically. And those things include what is mentioned here from an older post from Q, right? This is an old post from Q where he talks about how the Senate can do much more. And he even gives us a link here to the jurisdiction of the Committee on the Judiciary from the Senate, which talks about their vast abilities to do all types of different things. They can provide oversight for all of the departments and agencies, but more importantly, they can do things like bankruptcy, mutiny, espionage, and counterfeiting, right? They can have oversight and create legislation and resolutions and petitions, and this is like a big deal, right? So in federal courts and judges, obviously this is going to be a big deal if we're going to be putting people to trial, and there's just so much here. So this is what I think it's saying. It's saying that basically Goodlatte, Gowdy, and Sessions all pushed stuff back to the Senate, got it to the Senate so that it could be looked at now. Then it's going to be up to them because they're the main, power in the legislative body. Remember, there's three branches of the government. We have the judicial, the legislative, and the executive, and they all are supposed to have equal amounts of power and checks and balances over one another. So there we go. That's what I think that's saying. Then it talks about Huber from this Fox News article, which, Huber is definitely the guy that's kind of like a wild card out there. He's been running these investigations with Michael Horowitz for a while. I think when it's saying like who reconfirmed Huber, however you say that, and who originally appointed Huber, and the importance of partisan optics, it's because John Huber was actually an appointment of the Obama administration, if people will, remember, and that he was actually reconfirmed by President Trump and his administration. So the importance of partisan optics means when Huber starts laying this investigation at the feet of the Senate and the American people, it's going to be hard for the fake stream media, the mainstream media, to turn around and say, "Oh, he's just some Trump operative who's been sent in to throw a wrench into everything and make up lies and all this stuff." Because you'll know that that's not true. Because what you'll know is after reading this and understanding it is that the optics will be, this guy is a former Obama administration official. He's not partisan. He's worked on both sides of the aisle. So, to me, I think that's what it is. The mandate charged to Huber, the resources provided to Huber. Yeah, the mandate, I think, was given to Huber. Basically, you have this, we need to look into all these different crimes, the emails, the FISA, you name it, right? So, and the resources, he has like 470 investigators between him and who? Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General. And Inspector General Horowitz's mandate is basically the same, to help assist in doing internal investigations into what actually happened when it comes to Uranium One, when it comes to the Clinton Foundation, when it comes to the emails, the email scandal, the 33,000 emails that disappeared. This is all happening behind the scenes. And I know this is slow, guys. Trust me. If I could speed up the process, I would, but I can't. So it says, who was Jeff Sessions' chief of staff? We all know that was Matt Whitaker. What were the responsibilities of Matt Whitaker? Well, I guess as his chief of staff, it'd be very likely that he's the one coordinating with Michael Horowitz and John Huber with regard to overseeing that those different investigations. So Q says shadow players are the deadliest stealth. So this is it. Like we said, the stealth bomber that Q's been talking about over the last few posts has turned out to be this guy, Matt Whitaker, because he's perfect. Think about the way that this scenario is played out. And I'm sorry if this is a little repetitive for people who watch the channel regularly, but this is how it's basically played out. Jeff Sessions steps down. Jeff Sessions' recusal then goes away. So his inability to oversee the Mueller investigation has disappeared now because he doesn't work as the Attorney General. Rod Rosenstein, who was overseeing the Mueller investigation, will now have to turn that oversight over to, you guessed it, Matt Whitaker, who has been quoted in articles as being a very big proponent of investigating Hillary and the Clinton Foundation and everything. So this is the stealth bomber, I think. That's like, it was a metaphor Q kept dropping that didn't make sense. I guess everybody thought it meant stealth Jeff. Because I think it's like that was a popular idea. And this was the stealth play, though. The stealth play was getting Whitaker in. And now you can hear it. You hear all these, the same liberal Democrat House representatives and senators all coming up and saying, yeah, well, Whitaker needs to recuse himself now because he said this. And you're like, wait. Why does he have to recuse himself? Oh, I know why he has to recuse himself. He has to recuse himself because the Mueller investigation is just a way to shield all of the information that would prove that basically there was corruption at the highest levels all the way through the last campaign and administration, all the way up until President Trump took office in January of 2017. So I hope this is all making sense, right? It says, what is the advantage of having a temp acting in a leadership position? Well, it's great. It's like Q says here with the Anthony Scaramucci example. I mean, it's unfortunate for Matt Whitaker. He may be pretty expendable. Like you can just once he's served his purpose, you can get rid of him. But like it says here, the whole point of bringing Scaramucci in, it seems, was to get rid of Reince Priebus, and Sean Spicer, right? Now, I'm not saying that Priebus and Spicer were bad dudes. I know a lot of people have their feelings. I personally, when it comes to Priebus, I feel like I'm pretty sure he was a swamp, and then Sean Spicer, he's a nice guy. I don't want to get on him too much. He definitely took a lot of flack for doing what he did. But yeah, Q says that was a successful mission. So they brought Scaramucci in. He shook everything up. He got out the swamp creatures, presumably, and people who may not have agreed with the president or have been proponents of supporting his agenda. And that was it. Now this is the same thing. What is Matthew Whitaker going to do as the acting attorney general in a temporary leadership position? You guys just wait and see. I think we're going to see a lot more people drop out of the of the administration, possibly, and other positions. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Laser designators, that's kind of like a term they use in the military, I think, but it's kind of, I think it's obviously being given in a metaphorical sense here to say that they're pointing to the individuals who are targeted. And I mean, this is it, because that's what Q is, right? Q is telling us like what's going on behind the scenes. There's investigations going on behind the scenes. We're going to have, hopefully, we have all these sealed indictments. Hopefully they'll be unsealed. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. So it says, who is assigned directly to Sessions by POTUS? And of course, that would be Ezra Cohen Watnick, who is the national security advisor that left the White House after being forced out of the White House, only to be then forced into the Justice Department by President Trump. Mandate charged Ezra Cohen Watnick in the Defense Intelligence Agency. Obviously, his mandate's going to have a lot to do with going over a lot of the stuff that's going on with these different investigations, and then making sure that we, consolidate that information and consider national security. National Security Advisor Jeff Sessions, counterintelligence and counterterrorism, who briefed Nunes on classified intel regarding Hussein's spy campaign versus POTUS. And of course, like I've showed you guys before, this Business Insider article talks about exactly that Ezra Cohen Watnick was the one who was basically briefing these individuals on what was going on. And Q wants us to look at that. So but that tells us all we need to know about Ezra Cohen Watnick. That means that he was sent basically by the White House to the Justice Department to effectively be their man on the ground there, right? So, for lack of a better term, I guess. And that's what it is. That's what he's doing. That is what his mandate was, to go over there and make sure that he oversees, this whole vast operation. It's basically trying to clean house in the FBI and the DOJ, in order to make it possible for people to be charged with crimes that they've allegedly committed and have had sealed indictments brought against them for. So that, to me, is what we're looking at here. And that says, who briefed Goodlatte and Gowdy? And then unclassified intel regarding DOJ and FBI. And I think that's obviously Ezra Cohen Watnick as well. So, and then it gives these I'm sorry, I don't know what these things are called, but they're pointers. Greater than or less than, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is that Ezra Cohen Watnick is the one being pointed to there, and maybe it's Ezra, and there's three here. Maybe it's because it's Ezra Cohen Watnick, Michael Horowitz, and John Huber. Possibly. It says the world is watching, the world is witnessing the true identity of the Democrat Party war Q. So there you go, guys. In a nutshell, that's what it is. And Anon had a great breakdown. And I'll share it with you real quick, just because I thought it was pretty spot on. It was a good way to sum it up. But I won't read the whole thing. I'll just read kind of the part that I thought was interesting, because he kind of goes through everything that we just went through. And it says down here that out of that story, gave us a good quote, right? or out of this other story, the Washington Post story, excuse me, saying a military and intelligence hawk, Cohen Watnick, has advocated for expanding U.S. involvement against Iran-backed militias in Syria and for more aggressive intelligence operations in Russia and China. But overall, not much is known about the policies of Cohen Watnick, who served for several years as an intelligence officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency. Cohen Watnick equals superhero to me. Nice work. So that's like kind of a little background on Cohen Watnick, Ezra Cohen Watnick, and you can just imagine that somebody with that background and that pedigree working on this, and especially given the fact that Q's telling us this person is obviously trustworthy and working for the good guys, is just another indicator that we're on the right path, guys, and things are happening even though it may not seem like it every day. Now the next one here is pretty simple. It's this old post from Q. It gave the Twitter account to the guy who, or from the gentleman who shared this. And it was saying, amazing what you discover when you research for yourself. God bless you, Patriots. Q. And this is basically what this is: a political heat map put up against a map which details the highest concentrations of undocumented immigrants in our country. And what the point that was being shown to us basically was like, look, this heat map and this undocumented immigrant map almost line up perfectly for and gives you a good insight into why the Democrats have taken it as one of their key issues to fight for, is this whole immigration thing and getting rid of borders and getting rid of ICE and just doing all these crazy, irresponsible things, really, in my opinion. And but this makes sense now. I mean, it basically matches up almost spot on. And that tells you all you need to know about who, in my humble opinion, the platform of the Democratic Party is meant to embolden or to serve. So that to me is something that was interesting. Q goes on to give us this one here. This is a pretty popular meme that's been going around. I've seen it on Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. But it just says, this is just a small list of things requiring ID but not considered racist. And this is so true. I mean, I don't understand how people can look at this and think, oh man, that's such a racist meme. And you're like, what's racist about it? You need an ID to purchase alcohol, purchase cigarettes, open a bank account, apply for food stamps, apply for welfare, get Medicaid, get Social Security, apply for a job, get a mortgage, get unemployment, get a hunting license, get a fishing license, get a house, get a condo, get a car, rent a car, buy a car, drive a car, right? Register a car, rent a hotel, buy an M-rated video game, boarding an airplane, getting married, purchase a gun, purchase ammo, adopt a pet, get a prescription, donate blood, pawn shop transactions. But showing ID to vote that's definitely racist. That's you guys don't get it. You don't get it because the fact that I have to show my ID for every other thing to do everything basically, but the fact that I would have to show it, that would be racist. It's just a stupid. It's a stupid notion, I think, concept that things can be racist because people just say they are, because it's inherently racist, because it disproportionately affects a certain class of people. When you go, well, that's just not true. That's just not true. Anybody can go get an ID card. It's not that hard. And if you need it to do all these other things, then why in the world wouldn't you need it to vote? It just makes no sense. Anyway, Q says, will recent expected voter fraud actions by the Democratic Party provide support for a voter ID law? Voter ID law equals death of the Democratic Party. Boomerang suicide. Q. So this one's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's talking about all this stuff that's happening. I mean, you guys see what's happening in Florida. That's crazy with the votes and how votes are just getting mixed in together with other votes that are not valid, and then there's like truckloads of votes just showing up days after the election. To me, it's one of the most. Obviously, I think it reminds a lot of people back to the 2000 election, Bush and Gore. But I think to me, it looks so much more. I mean, I know Broward County very well. I've spent a lot of time in South Florida in that area, in Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade County. And let me just say this, that It doesn't surprise me for 1 second everything I've seen on the news. As much as I'm disgusted by what I see, not for 1 second am I surprised. And I really believe it probably will only get worse until some sort of law enforcement agency, I mean, anybody steps in and says, look, you have suits being filed by the governor of Florida, Rick Scott and others, saying, you can't hold on to these votes. You have to report this. You can't just sit on them and then cherry pick them and then mix them all together to make them to make it a nightmare. It's bad. It's getting bad. But what Q says is, will that be what pushes Congress to create a voter ID law? I think that would be great. I'm in a 100% favor of a voter ID law. I think voter IDs should be mandatory no matter what. If you need it, honestly, guys, I think the ones that you need to look at are you can't get Social Security. You can't get a job. You can't get a mortgage. You can't get a license. Well, I mean, you need a license to get a license, but you know what I'm saying. You can't drive a car. These are things you need an ID for. And to say that oh, hey, anybody, yeah, we don't care. You don't need one to vote. That's, and it's just stupid. Anyway, boomerang suicide. That's kind of just saying, I think that obviously it's just a metaphorical saying to say, it's like a boomerang. You throw it out and it comes back. And if you're not expecting it to come back, it could probably, end up hurting you pretty bad. So that's what they might be doing here. They're throwing that boomerang out it's racist to have voter IDs, and then it's going to come back and bite them in the what. I don't know. That's the way I read it. So the next one here is this Bing search results. Now, this one's quite interesting because it's basically just Q giving us all of these different search results for when you put QAnon into the search for news on Bing, and it talks about Jeff Sessions and the grift of QAnon. QAnon believers are taking Trump's pressers as a sign. And from trolling to fleecing, co-creator of Q Hoax explains its scary evolution. Poor, what's his name? I think his name was Shoestring, something like that. Wired Shoe. I don't know why I'm thinking of a string. Anyway, the guy who Jack Posobiec did the whole story with, where they basically said, oh, I made Q and now I'm telling you all it's a hoax. And you're like, well, no, it's not, because we've seen all the evidence to prove that it's not. Anyway, Trump campaigned to protect himself, not help Republicans. QAnon conspiracy theorists warned that Antifa would ruin the election. Mockery ensued. Yeah, they didn't ruin the election. They just ruined... I'm not even going to talk about them because they're not even worth talking about. Yeah, so, hey, this is very, very interesting. There's just so much here. And I think, Q points us to this stuff just to show us what's going on and how it's like a fake news onslaught. They take these extreme cases where somebody goes out and does something awful, and then they say, oh, it's your fault. But I mean, nobody went, and the thing is, what I hate, the hypocrisy of it all, it's like that the evil person who went and basically attacked the Republicans while they were having a baseball practice, that to me, it's not like they turned around because he was a big Bernie supporter and said, oh yeah, obviously it's Bernie Sanders' fault. But they don't mind doing that with Q. See, because it's not Bernie's fault when somebody goes out and does something and they say they support him. But when somebody goes out and does something and they say they support Q, well then, you know what? Stop the presses. We're going to have to roll out the biggest story ever, talking about how Q is a dangerous, deranged conspiracy theory. Pizzagate on bath salts is my favorite one that they've called us. So, look, I mean, we're trying our best to report objective fact. And to do that through this lens that Q's giving us to look at these objective facts and say, oh, wow, that looks suspicious. That looks interesting. That looks like something we should know about. But they want to turn around and say that what we're doing is dangerous and that we're all deranged, when I've never, ever advocated for violence. I've never advocated for anything but discourse and debate, and to have investigations and to do everything properly by the prescription of the law. And they turn around and say, oh yeah, this person, he's obviously deranged. He's a nut job with, racist, misogynist, xenophobe, who obviously, is out of his mind. But no, it's not true. And I know that 99.9% of all of us out there are the same way. We want discourse. We want justice as prescribed by the law. We don't want anything different than what is already written as law for our country. We just want those laws to be effectively implemented, and then we want the individuals who are sitting in positions in government who are preventing the equal application of law. We want them removed, and we want fair and balanced people put in. And that was not a plug for Fox News, but we do want fair-minded individuals put into these positions to do fair investigations, and people who aren't compromised, basically. So just going to the next post right here, it's talking about this post that we've already gotten from Q over on the Patriots Fight board, which basically just says that it gives like an idea of future communications and saying that pre-stage election, yes. Pre-stage security, yes. Pre-stage direction, yes. Pre-stage capabilities, yes. I'm guessing on those last two. Well, let's be honest. I'm guessing on all of them, but but no, I'm pretty sure that that's what those are saying. So if you guys have different interpretation, please leave it down. But everything's ready and everything's coming, which means we're going to get more communications. So this is all part of the plan, guys, and that's what Q's telling us. And I think Q even started a new thread over on the Patriots Fight 8chan board. So that's interesting. That means I think we're starting a whole new thing. I mean, with Jeff Sessions stepping down and Matthew Whitaker stepping up, we're starting a whole new move that's going to produce a whole new set of results that are going to be quite impressive. And the people who are following this like diligently, like myself and a lot of others, we're just going to be the ones sitting here going, this is what we've been told for so long. That's the funny thing. You can go back and start reading old Q posts, and a lot of the stuff that we get now in over the last few months has been a lot of recycled stuff. But it's not just recycled. You learn more. It evolves. You get more information. New things happen. New developments happen. People get fired. People get put into new positions. So that's what I think we're on the precipice of, and that's what Q is telling us. And then, of course, it gives us this old post from Q all the way back from February where it talks about what a patriot is. It's saying a patriot is a person who loves, supports, and defends his or her country and its inherent interests with devotion. And then another definition would be a person who regards himself or herself as a defender, especially of individual rights against presumed interference by the federal government. I consider myself both of those things simultaneously. But then it says a traitor. It says a traitor is a person who betrays another or a cause or any trust, a person who commits treason by betraying his or her country, Q. And that's what we're up against here, guys. These are people who betray others and they betray their country. And we're going to expose them. We're going to have justice served. That's all. We're not asking for anything special here. I despise when people say, oh, these Q guys want martial law and they want this and they want that. Absolutely not. Quite to the contrary. We want the laws that we have now to be enforced properly and equally, so that if a politician of high standing, let's say somebody who used to be a former Secretary of State, goes and deletes, 33,000 government emails and then says, oopsie daisy, sorry, that maybe we should have like an investigation. Maybe we should try to criminally prosecute somebody who does that kind of stuff. And that's just one example. There's dozens, if not hundreds. So, this is where we're at. And it's crazy. So now, before we sign off, I wanted to take you guys through this. I just got a message from Praying Medic, and I'm really, really saddened, really, to hear what's happened to him. I think we should all go over and show him some support. And basically, what basically he told me, he wrote me a little letter and just said, look, my channel's gotten this strike and this is crazy, and we're working on ways to figure out what to do. And I think right now he's a little worried that there's going to be more. And I say, we need to go support him. You need to tweet at YouTube. You need to write them letters. You need to write them a message and say, Get out there, support him and his work. And to me, look at what they said in this. They we encourage free speech and defend everyone's right to express their points of view, even if unpopular. However, YouTube doesn't allow hate speech. Well, what is hate speech? What is hate speech? And they'll give you a little definition, right? Oh, you can learn more about hate speech here. But I mean, the reality is, hate speech is a completely subjective term. I mean, if I get on here, let me ask, I mean, is it completely fair for me to say this? Like, all right, YouTube. So if I get on here and say I hate Mondays, which I don't, but I mean, just hypothetically, if I wanted to say that, would that be hate speech because I said I hate something? I mean, guys, this is so crazy. I feel bad for him, and all the work he's done is really great. So if you guys want to go support Praying Medic, go ahead and give him a shout and tell him I sent you, and just give him that support that he needs right now as he goes through this, because it's really, really sad and unfortunate. But yeah, go ahead and show him some support, and that really would mean a lot to me and for all of us here. I think we're all in it together. We don't really look at it as like a competition. It's like we just want to get the truth out there, and especially what Praying Medic's doing, and his message is really important. So go support that. Now, before you go, a few ways you can help out the channel is to come here, click the big red subscribe button. It helps the channel out more than you guys will ever know. Watch these videos, share these videos, get that information out there. Yeah, leave your thoughts, theories, and insights. I want to hear your take on what's going on, what these new posts mean, anything that, any new interpretation you have, bring it, please, down in the comments. And even if you can't comment, I encourage you to scroll down at the end of this video and read through the comments. You're going to read a lot of great, thoughtful, insightful things from different people. Now, here is basically my Twitter page. If you guys want to go ahead and support the channel another way, you can come over here to Twitter at Justin_Formed. Again, that's at Justin_Formed. It's Justin Formed Talks official Twitter page. And when you come over here, you get all my cool tweets. Yeah, really cool tweets. And then you get all my videos from YouTube automatically get posted here, and all the articles that I get up on the website get posted here as well. So if you're asking yourself what website, I encourage you to check it out. It's justinformednews.com. You can come over here and check it out whenever you get a second. That helps out the channel as well. So thank you for everybody who does that. Now, another couple ways you can help out the channel are both financial. I really need your support, guys. Basically, you know the deal with YouTube and the demonetization, and you saw what happened to Praying Medic. You know, we depend on you guys to support us and what we do, and we're very grateful. I know he's relayed that message to me, at least, and I think we both are on the same page when it comes to that. We're very thankful. So when you guys want to help this out, help out this movement, help out these channels, keep us reporting this information against, you got to think about who we're going up against here, guys. We're going up against the mainstream media. We're going up against these big corporations, these big globalists, and we need all the help we can get, especially since YouTube has taken it upon themselves to come after our content for demonetization on a regular basis because they want to categorize something that we say as whatever, as hate speech, when it's not. It's really not. It's so subjective. You can't just say, oh, it's hate speech and then remove it. So to me, we need your help. So come over here to Patreon, patreon.com, and you can find me over here at Justin Formed Talk. Just search that. Come here, hit this button to become a patron. Also, you guys come over here and look up Praying Medic while you're at it. You can go ahead and find Praying Medic's Patreon page here, and you can support him too. I think we're all over here, so we definitely need your help, and thank you so much to everybody who contributes and helps out. The platform links will be in the description. Another way, if you're not interested, this is a monthly donation, and it helps out big time. It's great. You can give for as little as $1. You can help this channel out. But if you don't want to do that, I totally understand. That's why I made this GoFundMe page. It's gofundme.com/just-informed. And there'll be a link in the description of this. Just click this donate button, and you can actually make a one-time donation and an anonymous donation if you don't want to have your name out there. So I totally appreciate that, and we're super thankful for all your help and support. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to talk about the most important part of every one of these episodes. I'm glad you guys made it all the way to here, and that is God's Grace is Greater, our segment that we have at the end of each episode, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And for this, I have a great story. This is a great story out of the Gospel. It's the Gospel of Luke, and we're in chapter 23, and it's verses 39 through 43. And this is a strong story. So I'll give you a little setup to what's going on here. This story takes place at the time when Jesus has been hung on the cross and sentenced to death by Pontius Pilate, who didn't really have any reason to sentence him to death. The only reason Pontius Pilate ended up sentencing Jesus to death was because the crowd of people there, the accusers of Jesus, were calling out for Barabbas to be freed and that Jesus was to be sacrificed. And when that happened, there were 3 people that went there. But I'm going to read this story to you. But the setup to this is that Jesus was being crucified between 2 criminals, right? And one of the criminals made a statement and the other made another statement. It gives you this incredible insight into our own humanity and especially how we want to be as Christians. So I'll read this to you. It says, "Then one of the criminals hanging there began to yell insults at him. 'Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us.' But the other answered, rebuking him, 'Don't you even fear God? Since you are undergoing the same punishment, we are punished justly because we're getting back what we deserve for the things we did. But this man has done nothing wrong.' Then he said to Jesus, 'Remember me when you come into your kingdom.' And he said to him, 'I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise.'" What is that story saying? That to me, whenever I read that kind of story, it's so important to share this message. So the message is this: as they're hanging there on the cross, can you imagine you're being crucified, which means you're being hung up on this big cross, and it's painful, and it's humiliating, and it's that it's going to end in your untimely demise. And Jesus is hanging there between these 2 criminals, and the one says, You're the King of the Jews. You're the Messiah. Why don't you just save us? Why don't you just ask God to come and take us off the cross and make us healthy and let us go?" But then the other says, "Don't you even fear God? Since you are undergoing the same punishment? We are punished justly because we're getting back what we deserve for the things we did. But this man has done nothing wrong." So the other criminal is basically saying, we deserve this. We made our choices. We made our decisions. We committed the crimes, and now we're paying for those actions. And I think the message with them was that, they're like, we're getting what we deserve. But look at what Jesus has done. Jesus has done nothing wrong. Even Pontius Pilate himself said that he's done nothing wrong. There's no reason why I should sentence this man to death. Yet still, Jesus is hanging on the cross there. And I think it's just incredible because the man who was rebuking the other criminal and defending Jesus and saying, he says, "Jesus, just remember me. Just remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise." And that's the beauty of God. That's the beauty of Jesus. That's the beauty of the Holy Spirit. That's the beauty of Christianity. That's the beauty of what we are. We are Christians. We are here to help those that are being hurt. We are here to help bring justice. We are there to make the world a better place. And this is the perfect example. Even though we are all sinners, even though we all we're not perfect, and we make mistakes, and we are inherently sinful, if we just ask God and say, "Look, God, we know you're perfect. Just remember us," God will do that. So that's going to wrap this episode up. I'm sorry we went a little longer. I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, if you don't take anything else away, just take away that God loves you and that you are blessed and that you have your eternal salvation through our Lord and Savior Christ Jesus. So again, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, now's a great time to come here, click it. But that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.